Hello there, everyone, and in particular, my Jennifer. I sort of have been having at the back of my mind that I should get back to the whole energy conversation that we've been having because it was so much fun, and you're never done, are you? So, um, I'm going to have another go at this. It's a bit, I'm a bit fuzzy in the brain because of all the, you know, stuff that you've seen. It's um it's been rather more than I was expecting, and a lot more personal and a lot more intense, and a lot of the stuff that has happened to me in this life, and you know, preferences and tastes, things and quirks and stuff, is just sort of starting to all fall together. Not all of it. Luckily, not all of it. It's not like I'm actually living in the 14th century or in the 11th, and I'm not really here. I mean, sometimes you tend to think that I'm completely gone off my brain, and yes, I have. Except, I think that's my path, really. I have to sort of dive off the deep end into things that are important to me somehow or other, and then see where that takes me. And actually, working with the Shakti energy has been no different. It's that. And I kind of feel that the developments that you have been watching on this channel lately, in the past couple of weeks or so, um, a lot of them are really sort of maybe not caused by the Shakti energy itself, but they're caused by my increasing coherence with the Shakti energy. Let me put it with my own Shakti energy. So, like in the Teal Swan video that I referenced a couple of weeks ago, where she said you have to be prepared, kind of, that you are going to be your real self. Well, yeah. I guess that kind of happened. It was only. Dang. I mean, here I am, I'm just trying to make sense of it all. And there's a lot of stuff that comes together. And one example, for example, I've always been really fond of the Nakshampa incenses. That's been really one of my top favorite types of incense, and there's lots of people out there who like Nakshampa, and most of the time I think they're into a different brand of that incense than I am, because my brand, my thing. But the just in general, the taste preference that I have for that type of tropical incense really jives with all the backstory, all the background of what we've been going into in the past couple of weeks. And it's just one tiny example of something that I just suddenly realized 10 minutes ago while I was lighting my stick of incense in preparation for, getting the mojo back together and getting my story into sync with actually coming on and doing another energy work update. So there were a couple of other than that. I mean, that's just a footnote right there. There were a couple of things that you said, Jennifer, in your last couple of energy updates that you put out there. I remember just a few of them because I did take notes, but there was also, there were, as you've seen, there were quite a number of other things on my mind, and there's two things that are still with me that that I keep wanting to get back to you with, for this particular session. I think still it's quite valuable to talk about these things. There was a point where you were wondering whether it would be useful or possible for you to actually cut cords with family, and you were asking that question, and I'm I'm no expert at these things. I can only talk from my own experience or my own impressions of things, and um, the I think it would be quite tricky to, attempt to do any energetic cutting of cords for a couple of reasons. Because there's a couple of scenarios that how this could go, right? For example, you succeed at cutting the cords, but what's going to happen then? How are you going to feel? What are the consequences of that situation? It's going to be a completely new physical and energetic situation for you. Is How long will it take you to get back in coherence with yourself, back into balance? I'm not sure. Bodies are supposed to be related to quite a number of people. And that's just the scenario where it would actually work, where you would do the thing, in whatever way, and you would succeed, okay? Another scenario might be that you try to do this and fail, which is, I think, quite likely, because I don't think it's really possible to cut the cords. But for some reason or other, you would land in a land of illusion where you would feel freer for a while. And then what good does that do? Because a year or 2 years later, airplane, something happens and the cords are all, boom, back in action. Everything's just still there because you haven't really worked on what the chords meant for you. And so I'm not trying to force anybody to, hopefully, I'm not trying to force anybody to, confront the issues or go into this everlasting discussion with themselves like I do. I mean, it's just my MO. I don't think you should certainly shouldn't listen to me in that way, because I'm not trying to tell anybody anything. I'm just trying to separate out the possible scenarios here, and I was most kind of slightly worried about the scenario where you would think that you cut the cords and nothing really happened, and then an X while later something happens and you're disappointed and everything just falls on your head again, and you just have to live with it all over again. And I think that happens. I think that happens a lot, that people just are basically deluding themselves because they need space. And I've done it. As I sit here. I have done it. Deluding myself into creating some form of virtual inner any visualization we do which isn't really connected to the actual, is really, it's just a game, really. It's a dream, it's an illusion. It is only we practice by doing these things. It's not pointless. That's what I think. And every one of us has a different vibration, a different truth that we want to get closer to. And we do that in our own style, in the style that fits us. And the third scenario that I thought of was that you could sort of actually cut these cords more or less, or attempt to do that, and then go at it again and again and fail. And waste time. Waste your time, waste. Also, something that strikes me now from especially the background business that I've been involved in recently, what about the qualities and the value of that background? What about the priceless stuff that's in there, that's hidden in there. Maybe you can look at things like that. Just, I don't know. We are not our families, obviously not. I mean, duh. You're a separate individual. You have your own path, very much so. You've not, you don't have to feel in any way limited to what it is that they are doing, no matter what. But it's like with me and the Auschwitz thing. If I had cut that cord, I would not have made that video that has gotten quite a number of views by now, and the people enjoy, or people jive with that, and I think it's worthwhile doing that. So if I'd cut the cords, like my mother definitely wanted me to cut the cords with my whole dad thing, and she wanted me to not be a child of my dad anymore, basically. So that's for that subject. And the other thing would have been a bit more general. I think you were stating a few times that you find yourself lacking in discipline and consistency. So I remember, I think that you stated at some point that your Mercury is in Gemini. So that's bound to happen, right? That's what Mercury in Gemini will do. It will bounce you all over the planet, and you'll be interested in everything. But my Mercury, just to compare, is on 0 degrees and a bit Leo. And I can, though both of those, so Cancer as a history for Gemini and Leo as a future, both of those are relatively slow signs. So I get a lot of time to incorporate things. My husband's Mercury is in Pisces, and he's even slower than me. But the advantage of that is that you get time to sort of incubate material, and even in ways that you don't see yourself. You don't notice, you're not aware, and you just sort of sit on it and mull it all over, and even when you've forgotten about it and you just gone back to your book, or you come back to your work, or you come back to whatever it was that the next thing is, and half a year later, if it's important enough, it'll surface again. It'll just go bloop, and there it is again. So that's our way of processing things, and I think I've quite often found the way I interact with my husband in these respects, especially after I figured out what his Mercury position is. Because before that, or without that knowledge, to me, I would have thought that he was, because his priorities are different. The priorities of every sign are different. I washed my hair, and now my hair is in my face, and I go, yeah, itchy. That's the reason. So I'm not itching here for for any particular other reason. So Mercury in Gemini then would really be about this adventurousness and sort of not even conquest. It's just about moving out into the world and just tapping onto everything and trying to combine everything with everything else, really, and see what happens, and just make the world that we live in, and society, and our culture, etc., yours and mine, I think, tends to emphasize longer term goals than that of Mercury and Gemini. So the energy for you would be to, oh, this is interesting, oh, I like this, oh, this is cool, boing da doing da doing da doing, from one, just in the intellectual basis of things. So having said all that, I don't want to go on about this forever. In a mental framework, in an intellectual framework, if that is where your motivation is coming from, you will find it harder to make yourself disciplined, or sort of grab yourself by the hair and meditate, or that's not, you're mentally going to rebel at that. And so it would be like interesting for you to try and weasel your way around that in some way. And um, to what extent, my question to you, to what extent um, are there, other than intellectual needs, that are alive in you, in your life, in your situation, in the past couple of years? What do you want? What do you really want? And yeah, so from there on outwards, and then at some point we have to make our brains also do what we want. But the brain will gallop ahead if we let it. Huh? That's just how that goes. So, um, as far as developing more consistency is concerned, I would go about it in that way. I would certainly try to step away from a bit, to some extent, step away from the intellectual exercise that things tend to be. For me as well, I tend to just go about things as an intellectual exercise, or especially in the past. But my life has been so weird and so upside down and so painful sometimes that I've had to make myself listen, make myself pay attention. And I think that's the good thing about Mercury, really, and or about any of the planets potentially, but especially about Mercury. It's like an outgoing enthusiast. It's like a dog or a child. You don't want to make them anything, or make them do, or make them shut up, or make them be quiet or anything, or behave. That's not the approach, because they're just going to sit there and mope and be mad at you. And whereas if you can give them something to do that they enjoy, yeah, and then in the meantime you can do your thing, if that makes any sense. So perhaps that would be an option for you. Now that I'm actually talking about this, it might actually be an option for you to. I'm just inventing here as I sit here. You mentioned a few times that you do collage and that you've gathered materials, but you've kind of gotten out of the habit of making stuff. Many, 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 many people have gotten out of their habits of making stuff in the past, oh, 10, 15, 20 years or so, because work and blah and everybody, and things and the internet and everything's constantly in our brains, and it's constantly jumping up and down in front of us, and gotta engage, and I gotta do the phone thing, and I gotta do the Facebook and blah. So, what about you find a way to make it interesting for yourself to do a collage work, a type of collage work that would actually allow for a meditation practice to take place at the same time. So I'm imagining a scenario here. I'm just going right ahead, and maybe you like this. I'm imagining, first of all, that in order for me, if it was me, okay, for me to do this, I would have to think of a collage. Okay, let's just do that. Okay, I would have to, because collage tends to always be pretty. It's one of those things that it doesn't really matter all that much whether you can't really screw it up, can you? I think that's my experience, leastways. I would love to make boards, or maybe A4 size sheets of maybe something that's slightly repetitive, a pattern that is, I'm seeing woven cloth here, just like you'd have a woven tapestry with big lumps of wool in, for example, horizontally like that. and then interchanging colors and what have you, and there's or maybe a grading from one color to another and that type of stuff. Something relatively simple like that, so something that doesn't completely absorb all the mind space. That would be one way of going about this. And then having, Tibetan bowls or Tibetan monks chanting. I love my Tibetan monks. I will stick them in the description bar for this tale here, because I have done a lot of good work with those guys. I just love this 3 hour long video of Tibetan monks chanting. It's very repetitive, and it's got the absolute atmosphere of being there, doing what you want to do. Really, it's got a lot of focus in it, because that's what those guys do. They're good at this, really. So yeah, so I would definitely go for those. And then once I've got my show on the road with this, say for example, and then you could always think of what you would use those panels for afterwards. You can always think of, but the idea would be to make yourself comfortable, get this activity going, because that will make your Mercury happy. You'll be ecstatic, and you can, I don't know, write lines of poetry in between the collage bits, or use words. Oh, Mercury will be ecstatic. It'll be fine. And you can do that, or maybe even do that in preparation for say half an hour, and then do a 10-minute meditation session afterwards. I think that might actually work, stacking it like that, so you get the you get everybody on the same page, like, because distraction is anathema in any type of proper meditation exercise. So let me know what you think. I'm just, I'm again, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do or how to go about this. I'm just trying to use my brain to figure out ways of doing this. Back in the old days, I used to do a lot of manuscript writing. I had, I've still got several pots of inks and stuff, and with pen and ink, and actually a pot of ink, and just going like, because it's not the same thing, is it? I'm sorry. Whether you use factory made stuff, I've made pretty cool stuff that way. So manuscript writing is more hard work than collaging, so that would be a difference. But you could make all sorts of things, but the idea would be then to have a repetitive activity where you can sort of see yourself do this, and everybody kind of inside of you just gets to chill out and just, sort of come back to earth a bit. And because it's a bit like my inner lodge story that I keep that I've referred to several times already. I've tried to get back to my inner lodge today for a little while. There's this idea. It's a meditation, a particular special meditation practice where you really are in a small enclosed space, and the only people in there are aspects of yourself. So it might be a bit intense at the beginning, but it's something that I find really helpful. And now, to me, with the all the past lives adventures going on, I have to take a sip of tea here. I find it a bit harder to get into the inner lodge state of mind. So I'll probably have to come back for that. I'll have to do another proper session with the inner lodge, and because it's not really the same anymore. Things have changed, and I will be able to better find out what it is that has changed inside of me as a consequence of all the, the family tree research, and now the karma research and all that. It's been a bit on the hefty side. So Okay, 25 minutes. I hope these two little points are helpful to you, Jennifer, or maybe to anybody else out there. As you can see, the sun is shining. I am very much alive. I think I am more alive than I've ever been. So happy days, people. Um, Keep safe and follow the path. Okay. See you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.